I shouldn't remember that moment as clearly as I do. But some memories don't ask permission, they just stay. It started on a dull afternoon, the kind where time feels heavy. My girlfriend had dragged me to her sister's garage because my car had been coughing smoke again. I remember the smell of metal and oil, the hum of a half-broken radio in the corner. And then her, standing by the open hood like she owned every inch of that silence. Mara, her sister. She wasn't what I expected. Older, yes, but not in a way that made her seem distant. More like she'd already seen every storm and learned to stand still in the middle of it. Dark hair tied back, grease on her thumb, eyes that could make you forget you were supposed to blink. She looked at me once, quick, assessing, and then went back to work. My girlfriend was scrolling through her phone, talking about dinner plans. Mara didn't join in. She just leaned into the car, her voice low, steady, explaining what she was fixing, though I doubt either of us cared about the engine. I asked if she needed a hand. She smiled, a half-smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You'd just get in the way," she said. But she handed me a rag anyway, like she wanted to see if I'd take it. I did. The rag was warm, maybe from her hand, maybe from the heat under the hood. Either way, something shifted. The air got quieter. My girlfriend laughed at something on her screen, completely unaware. When Mara straightened up, there was a streak of oil on her cheek. I told her. She wiped the wrong side. I hesitated before pointing again, and she caught the gesture, a little too quickly. Her eyes met mine for a second too long. "Better?" she asked. I nodded, though I hadn't really checked. There was nothing romantic about it. Not yet. Just awareness. Like the moment before lightning. She leaned against the counter after that, sipping from a chipped mug, pretending to watch the rain starting outside. I caught her reflection in the window, the smallest lift of her eyebrow when my girlfriend called me babe across the room. Not jealousy, not judgment, something quieter. When the car was finally ready, Mara wiped her hands on her jeans and said, "She's good to go." But her eyes stayed on me when she said it. I mumbled thanks, not sure who I was thanking. My girlfriend hugged her, quick, distracted. Mara didn't hug back, just patted her shoulder, eyes still flicking toward me like she was trying not to. As we left, the rain came harder. I turned back once, for no reason, I told myself, and she was still standing by the door of the garage, arms folded, hair damp from the mist. That's when she did it. She licked her lower lip, slow, almost thoughtlessly, then leaned close to her sister's ear and whispered something. I couldn't hear what she said, not until my girlfriend turned toward me with a strange little smile. She said, "Kiss me first." Weird, right? I laughed it off. Tried to, but my chest went tight, like my body knew something I didn't yet. All the way home, I kept replaying the look in Mara's eyes. Not teasing, not flirtatious, just knowing. Like she had started something I couldn't name. That night, when I tried to sleep, the sound of rain outside my window felt too much like her voice, steady, patient, impossible to ignore. And I knew, somehow, that the story hadn't even begun yet. My girlfriend had asked me to drop off a set of papers she'd forgotten. Invoices for the garage. She said it like it was nothing, just a favor, but I knew better. My pulse shouldn't have picked up the way it did when I pulled into the lot. The rain had stopped, but the air still smelled like it. Heavy metallic. The big garage door was half open, light spilling out across the concrete. I found her inside, bent over a workbench, sleeves rolled to her elbows. She looked smaller than I remembered. Tired, maybe. Or just alone. I hesitated at the entrance. She noticed anyway. "You again," she said, not turning fully, voice steady but softer than last time. "Just bringing these." I held up the folder like proof of innocence. She reached for it, her hand brushing mine for a second. Barely anything, but enough to make me forget what I was supposed to say. Her fingers were rough, calloused, real. The kind of hands that build things and break things. She noticed the pause, and her expression shifted, something flickering behind her composure. "Thanks," she said, looking down too quickly. "Your girlfriend could have just texted me." "She was running late," I said. I was closer. "Convenient," she murmured. There was a hint of something behind that word. Not accusation, just awareness. She turned away, pretending to organize tools. I watched her shoulders move under the dim light. Precise, careful, like every motion meant to hide whatever she didn't want seen. I asked if she ever closed the place early. She smiled without facing me. "Engines don't care about business hours." The silence that followed wasn't awkward, just dense. I noticed the faint tremor in her hand as she set a wrench down. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe something else. You okay? I asked quietly. She exhaled through her nose, almost a laugh. That's a big question for a Tuesday. Then, after a pause, I'm fine. Just tired. It was the kind of fine that never means fine. For a moment, neither of us moved. The radio played some old song about losing something you never really had. She leaned against the bench, head tilted back, eyes closed for a heartbeat longer than rest required. I caught myself staring, not at her face, exactly, but the way her fingers tapped against the metal edge, like she was keeping time with something only she could hear. When she opened her eyes again, they met mine. And for a second, the room felt too small for both of us. You should go, she said finally. Not harsh, just quiet, resigned. I nodded, but didn't move. Do you want me to lock up? Her lips curved, tired amusement, maybe gratitude. No, I'll finish up. I turned toward the door. Then she said, almost to herself, you noticed too much. I looked back, confused. She was staring at the folder I'd brought, but her eyes weren't really on it. Good night, I said. She didn't answer, just lifted her hand slightly, a small wave that looked more like surrender than goodbye. And when I stepped outside, the air felt heavier again, like I'd left something unfinished behind me. Not a planned visit this time, just bad timing. My girlfriend and I had fought over something small that turned heavy, and I'd driven out to clear my head. The rain came fast, turning the road slick, and the only light I saw was the garage sign still glowing faintly through the downpour. Mara was there, alone again. I could see her silhouette through the glass, bent over a desk, pen in hand, a faint curl of steam rising from a mug beside her. I almost turned away. Almost. But she looked up, saw me through the glass, and for some reason, she smiled. Small, tired, but real. When I stepped inside, the rain followed me, dripping from my jacket. She tossed me a towel without saying anything. You'll ruin the floor, she said. Looks like it's already ruined, I said, nodding toward the puddle near the entrance. That earned a quiet laugh. Not a big one. Just the kind people make when they forget to guard themselves. The storm got louder. Thunder rolled in the distance, the kind that makes silence heavier when it passes. I stood there, unsure if I should explain why I'd come. She didn't ask. Instead, she poured coffee into another mug and slid it toward me. Sit down before you start pacing holes into the floor. I did. The chair creaked. We sat across from each other at her work table, the single lamp above throwing soft shadows across her face. Rough night? She asked finally. Something like that. She nodded. She's young. They argue loud. I frowned. You're making it sound like a fact. It is, she said simply. You'll learn not everything needs fixing. Her tone wasn't sharp, more like she was speaking from somewhere she didn't visit often. I wanted to ask what she meant, but before I could, her phone buzzed on the table, a name flashing I didn't recognize. She glanced at it, expression tightening, and then flipped it over. Someone important? I asked before thinking. Her jaw moved, the smallest shift. Was, she said. Then, quieter. Not anymore. Silence again. Only rain and the low hum of the lamp. I looked at her hands, the faint grease stains that never quite washed out, the small scar near her thumb. Real things. Things that didn't pretend. When she reached for her mug, our fingers brushed, not by accident this time. Neither of us moved. Her eyes met mine, searching for something. Maybe permission, maybe reason. The kind of look that lasts too long for comfort, but not long enough for confession. Then her phone buzzed again, loud in the small space. She pulled her hand back like it burned. You should go, she said softly. Roads'll flood soon. I stood, heart pounding in a rhythm that didn't feel like mine. She followed me to the door, holding it open as wind rushed in, cold and sharp. Drive safe, she said. I nodded. You too. But when I stepped into the rain, I glanced back, just once, and saw her standing there, framed by the yellow light, her hand pressed against the doorframe like she was keeping herself from saying something. And for the first time, I wished the storm wouldn't stop. It had been 3 days since the storm. I told myself I wouldn't go back, that it was starting to look like something it wasn't. But lies sound believable when you whisper them to yourself. So when my car stalled again, I didn't even pretend to look for another mechanic. The garage was quiet this time. No music, no hum of machines, just the low buzz of the lights. Mara sat behind the desk, pen tapping against a form she wasn't really reading. She looked up, and her expression shifted from surprise to something unreadable. "You again," she said. But it wasn't teasing this time. "Guess my car likes your company," I said, trying to sound light. It came out softer than I meant. She stood, brushed off her hands. "Keys." I held them out. She took them carefully, her fingers grazing mine for a fraction too long. Then she sighed, setting the keys down on the counter between us, not taking a step back, but not moving closer either. "What are we doing?" The words came out of her before I could answer, like she'd been holding them too long. I blinked. "What do you mean?" She shook her head, almost laughing, but there was nothing funny about it. "You know exactly what I mean. You keep showing up. I keep letting you. And then we both pretend it's about a car that doesn't even need fixing anymore." Her voice wasn't angry. It was tired and honest. I leaned against the counter, trying to steady something inside me. "Maybe I just like talking to you." She smiled, faint, sad. "That's worse." We stood there in the kind of silence that isn't empty but full, of almost every word swallowed halfway through. Outside, the wind pushed against the garage door, the sound low and restless. "I didn't plan any of this," I said finally. "I just don't know what to do when I'm around you. It feels wrong," she finished for me. I met her eyes. "Does it?" She didn't answer right away, just stared at the oil-stained floor, the scuffed toes of her boots. "It should," she whispered. "You're with her. And She stopped. "I don't even know what I am anymore." I wanted to tell her that she didn't feel like a mistake, that every time she looked at me, the noise in my head went quiet. But the words stuck, heavy and useless. She walked past me, picked up the folder from the counter, flipped through it without seeing. "You think this is about attraction," she said finally. "It's not. It's recognition. You remind me of something I used to be, before I stopped trying." Her voice cracked on the last word. Just barely. I took a step forward. She didn't move away, but her breath hitched, a small, unguarded sound. "Mara, don't," she said quietly. Not sharp, not angry, just fragile, like the word might break if she said it again. The air between us felt thinner than air should. Then she looked at me, really looked, and for the first time there was no guard, no sarcasm, just exhaustion and something dangerously close to longing. "You should go," she whispered, "before I start asking you to stay. No texts, no reason to stop by." The silence was almost polite, the kind that hurts more because it's clean. My girlfriend said her sister was keeping to herself lately, and I nodded like that was news I hadn't been waiting for. Then one night, Mara called. Just once. "Can you come by?" she said. Her voice was steady, but something underneath it trembled. When I arrived, the garage lights were off. Only the small office in the back was lit, soft yellow spilling into the dark. She was sitting behind her desk, an open photo album spread across it. The air smelled faintly of coffee and rain. "I shouldn't have called," she said when I stepped in. "But I didn't want to be alone with this." "With what?" She turned the album toward me. Inside were photos, old, grainy, faded. A younger version of her, laughing beside a man I didn't know. He had the same easy smile I'd seen her wear in rare moments. There was a small boy, too, maybe 8 years old, standing between them, his grin crooked and bright. "My son," she said quietly. "Evan." I didn't know what to say. Her voice had softened in a way I hadn't heard before, not sad, just emptied. "He was 12 when his father left," she continued. 13 when he decided I didn't need protecting anymore. The next page showed an empty space where a photo must have been. Just the corner of an old sticky tab left behind. "What happened?" I asked, even though part of me already knew not to. "He's gone," she said. The word barely left her lips. "Accident. 3 years ago. A drunk driver. I still keep his things here sometimes, in the back. His skateboard, a jacket he never picked up." I swallowed hard. "Mara." She looked up at me then, and the distance between us felt like nothing. "You remind me of him," she said softly. "Not in looks. Just in the way you listen. The way you fill silence without saying much." It hit me like a slow ache, how every glance, every half-smile, every hesitation had been layered with something I hadn't seen. Not attraction. Not at first. A kind of ache that found the shape of its old wound. "I didn't mean to," I said quietly. "I know." She closed the album, her hand lingering on the cover. "But I think that's why I can't." She stopped, took a shaky breath. You make me remember something I've spent years trying to forget. The rain started outside again, soft, uncertain. I stood there, unsure if I should reach for her or give her the space she was asking for without asking. She smiled then, faint and raw. Don't look at me like that. I'm not broken, just misplaced. I wanted to tell her I understood. That maybe I was, too. But the words felt too small. So I just said, I'll stay a minute. You don't have to talk. She nodded once. No thank you, no pretense. And in the quiet that followed, she finally let a single tear slip down her cheek, almost invisible in the dim light, before whispering, I thought I'd forgotten how to feel this scared again. It was the kind of evening that didn't belong to any season. Cool air, fading light, the sound of faraway traffic blending into the hum of the world. Mara was closing up the garage when I arrived. No call this time. No reason. Just that quiet pull that had stopped feeling like a choice. She didn't look surprised. Just tired. But not in the same way as before. Not worn down. More emptied out. Like she'd finally stopped pretending to fight whatever this was. You shouldn't be here, she said, though there was no conviction behind it. I know. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, eyes tracing the lines on the floor. Does she know? No, I said. Because there's nothing to tell. Not yet. She gave a small, humorless smile. Not yet, she echoed. That's a dangerous kind of honesty. The silence stretched. The clock ticked somewhere behind her. I could hear the faint buzz of the fluorescent light above, the uneven rhythm of our breaths. Finally, she said, I keep trying to tell myself it's not real, that it's just proximity, timing, grief finding a shape it shouldn't. Maybe it is, I said, but it doesn't make it less real. She exhaled, shaky, and for a moment her eyes closed. You make it sound simple. It isn't, I said. It just feels like it when we stop talking. That made her laugh, small, cracked, but real. Then she looked at me again, really looked, and something inside both of us went still. I don't want to hurt anyone, she said. Least of all you. Then don't, I whispered. Just don't. We stood there, inches apart, and the air between us was heavy with everything unsaid. I could see the small details again. The faint smear of grease near her wrist, the silver thread in her hair catching the light, the tremor in her jaw when she tried to stay calm. Do you ever wish time could stop for a while? I asked. She nodded slowly. Every day since he died. I stepped closer, enough that I could feel her warmth, not touching yet, just there. Then let it stop now, I said quietly. For a long time, neither of us moved. The world outside felt far away, distant rain, a car passing, the smell of oil and coffee and memory. Then, without deciding, she reached out, her hand resting against mine on the counter. Not a grip, not even a full touch, just the softest brush of skin against skin, like a word half spoken. We didn't look at each other. Didn't need to. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a breath. We can't stay like this. I know, I said. But we did. Just now. And somehow, that felt like enough. So we stood there. No promises, no plans. Just two people who had stopped pretending they were fine. When I left, she didn't follow me to the door this time. But as it closed behind me, I heard her whisper, soft, steady, certain, thank you for not making me feel alone. It's strange, the way certain people leave a mark without ever really staying. Months have passed since that night in the garage. I still drive by sometimes. Not to see her, just out of habit, like muscle memory that forgot it was supposed to heal. The place looks smaller now. Cleaner, maybe. But the light that used to spill out onto the street still flickers, and every time it does, I feel something between ache and peace. We didn't talk again after that evening. No calls. No texts. She didn't need to explain, and I didn't ask. Some silences are kinder than words. My girlfriend and I didn't last much longer after that. Not because of Mara, but because I started realizing how often I looked past people instead of at them. I kept chasing connection like it was something to earn, not something to understand. Mara changed that. She didn't teach me about love. She taught me about stillness, about being seen without performance, about the way someone's quiet can say more than their words ever could. I think she needed that too. Someone who didn't fix or comfort or fill the space, but simply stood in it with her. Maybe that's what we were to each other. Two people who met in the quiet middle of different losses. Sometimes I imagine her still there, wiping grease from her hands, humming under her breath, letting the world move on without apology. She probably doesn't think of me much. And that's okay. I wasn't meant to stay, just to remind her, maybe, that she could still feel something. And she reminded me that not every ending needs to be tragic. Some just stop softly. When I look back now, what stands out isn't the tension or the near confessions, or even the moments that almost tipped into something more. It's the quiet, the charged, delicate kind that holds truth without needing to name it. Love, I've learned, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a hand brushing yours in a half-lit room. Sometimes it's a sigh shared between two people who both know they shouldn't, but can't pretend they don't. I think that's the part that stays with me. Not what we could have been, but what we were. Real, if only for a moment. And maybe that's enough. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?